I'm going to make some confit ducks for my sister for a birthday present and put them in jars and seal them. And nice gift, something that you can have in the cupboard, relatively easy to do, nothing too complicated. Just ducks from the supermarket, and they're alright. To be honest, I'd like a little bit more. You can see this, you can see the flesh underneath the skin. I'd much prefer to have a lot more fat on them. That's not too bad amount of fat, but it's a bit thin there. And you kind of, when you're doing confit legs and you crisp them up in the oven, you want lots of fat to render out and to become really crisp. And they're going to be okay. They'll be alright. There's nothing too bad, but pretty straightforward. To go through the ingredients, we've got some duck legs. I'm going to do 6 altogether. I'm going to give 4 to my sister, and I'll keep 2 for myself and keep them in the fridge and see how long they'll last in some stored fat. Some garlic, some thyme. I've got some lard just in case I haven't got enough chicken fat to render it. Ideally, you're supposed to use duck fat, or well, you can use any fat actually, because you can use olive oil. That's chicken fat, which I made the other week. I did a video. That's pretty straightforward. Obviously, if I can make something rather than buy it, it's a lot better. Chicken fat's great. Duck fat or goose fat would be better, but that's fine. If I haven't got just quite enough chicken fat to cook the duck legs, I'm going to use some lard, some salt, which is not fine salt but thick, like rock salt that you put in a salt grinder, and some pepper. So what we need to do first is to marinate the duck legs. A little bit of preparation, so we'll get rid of all that and that. Let's go to one side, out of the way. What happens when the duck cooks? The meat shrinks. So if it does shrink and it's attached to anything like the skin is attached to the knuckle, is that knuckle? Knuckle. That joint there, it will shrink and that will split. So it's best to cut that off, and it's best to cut, same here as well. It's best to cut that off as there as well. So when the meat shrinks, it doesn't tear off the bone. Pretty straightforward. Heal your knife as always. As you can see, I've already done some, and that's a bit dirty. Heal the knife using that part there, and then hopefully one swift, easy, clean movement, bit of force, and it should chop straight through it. Fingers crossed. There we go, straight through. Push the skin back a little bit there. Get the knife in there. Tease it out a little bit. Save those for stock. There's not much flavour in there, but why would you throw them away when you can get a little bit of jelly and a little bit of flavour, something like that. So the duck leg, same again. Watch me not make it fool myself. That's off there. That's too good a job at that. That'll be fine. That's fine. So those 2 duck legs. These are the other 4. So no, what I'll do first is I'll smash the garlic. Well, I haven't, I've got space on the board. Just a quick smash the garlic, don't need to chop it. Like that. That out of the way. Right, so back to the duck legs. What I found to be best to do in the past is to put 3 on the bottom, 1 clove of garlic each. Maybe not that now. Salt first. Salt first. A little bit in that one as well. What this will do is it'll just draw out any extra moisture and put some flavour into the duck as well. So a little bit of salt, a little bit of pepper. I'm not washing my hands, I'm at home, and we can be a little bit too good. So then garlic, a little bit of thyme, straight from the garden. Nice and fresh, sprig of thyme there, sprig of thyme there. Then the duck legs that we've got, season that, bit of pepper. Duck's not as, it's chicken that you really need to, and pork that you really need to worry about when you're preparing meats. Those are the ones that really do give you an upset stomach if you start. If you put in raw food next to cooked food. Chicken and pork are the ones that really kind of give you problems. generally any kind of meat that you have to cook through, like chicken or pork, are the ones that are going to give you an upset stomach if you don't cook them properly. And the same with touching boards and things like that. Things like duck and beef and lamb, you don't need to worry just as much. You still need to be clean and tidy, but that's what we've got. But that's the basic rule, and we're at home, and I'm not going to poison myself because I know what I'm doing. So then just put a clean one over the top, like there, nice and tight, so that thing's look neat and tidy. And then that's going to go in the fridge for 24 hours ideally. Overnight at a push will be fine, so 12 hours, 10, 12 hours minimum, 24 or better. And then what we'll do is we'll come back tomorrow and we'll talk about confit, the actual confit process, which is slowly cooking in fat, a fat of your choice, fat or oil of your choice, and it's delicious. So we'll see how it goes. So that's tomorrow. Put those in the fridge and we'll come back then. Right, Confit Duck Legs Part 2. They have been in the fridge overnight. It's probably coming up to 24 hours now. So which is good. So nice and marinated. Clean them off. Put it in the bin. Now duck legs, just pick off any lime and garlic. Give them a bit of a wipe over with the what we call it, with some kitchen paper. There's that. There. It doesn't matter if you get all the salt and pepper off. It's not that essential. I have known people actually, when they're cooking confit duck legs, put garlic and thyme and salt and pepper in with the fat that they're cooking in. So brushing it all off isn't that important. Some people would say wash it and then pass it dry. I don't think that's too essential. You can see there all the liquid that's come out of the ducks, which that's just the salt drying out any kind of extra moisture. And some more. Can use a cloth if you like, but kitchen paper is at hand tonight. There you go. So I can smell that the duck legs are nice. They've got a really nice smell of garlic about them. And I can smell the thyme as well. So that's permeated into the flesh, and now it'll be there forever as they cook and make everything taste really nice. It's not essential to put the garlic in and the thyme. If you don't like garlic or thyme, it doesn't really matter. Right, get out of the way. I melted the chicken fat. I don't think there's going to be enough chicken fat in there, to be honest, but we'll see. I always put the duck legs in skin side down. No, it doesn't look like there's going to be enough fat, but we'll see how we go. Skin side down. I seem to remember if I did it the other way, as in that way up, there's a bone that goes along the back there, and they had a habit of the bone splitting through the flesh and through the skin, and not being particularly nice appearance. Nothing wrong with them, but just the appearance wasn't as good. So I always tend to put them left side down. Oh, we might be okay. We might do a little bit more fat. But what we'll do is we'll bring that up to temperature. Sorry, melted. So I'll put a light underneath it. Bring it up to temperature. Slowly. You don't. It's one of those things like a soup or a stew, or if you braise meat things, you tend to, or braising a ham or something like that, you tend to bring things up to the boil quickly and then turn it right down. Or like with a stock, bring it up to the boil, turn it down, slow simmer. With duck, you don't really want to do that with fat, because as soon as you start getting fat up to a high temperature, it's going to start frying things. So low temperature, bring it up slowly. As you might be able to hear, that it's just starting to make a little bit of a noise on the bottom, which is not what you want at all. So low temperature and the gas. You can do it in the oven if you like, but I just kind of think cooking in an oven for 2.5 to 3 hours, if you're not cooking anything else low and slow in there, just seems like a real waste of electricity. Whereas once you've got the fat up to the right temperature, and a tiny little amount of gas or electric will then keep it at that temperature, and you're not really using much, and you're just heating what you want rather than like the whole oven, which is then heating the rest of the oven, and kind of just wasting a lot of energy. So low temperature, just let it sit there
I'll keep checking it every 5 or 10 minutes, and I'll probably move it onto one of the really smaller gas rings because this one's quite big. No, don't cover it, and then just let it sit happily there, cooking slowly away. No rush. I'm not doing anything else. I'm going to be in the house. I'm going to check it every 10 to 15 minutes to make sure it's not too cold or not too hot. Yeah, and then what we'll do is once they're cooked, we'll talk about putting them in jars and storing in jars, and then storing them in the fridge, and how long should keep them, all that kind of stuff. Right, so I've moved the Confit Duck Legs over to a smaller gas ring now and turned it on really low. As you can see, that the duck legs don't want. What's happened is, as they've heated up, the skin's contracted and the fat and the meat's contracted, and it's made them push themselves out of the fat, which is not what you want, because you want them to be completely submerged. So this is probably sacrilege for every French person everywhere, and really professional chefs. I'm going to use lard to top up the fat. It doesn't really matter. Obviously, you're going to get a lot more flavour with goose fat or duck fat, or even lard. Not lard. Even like beef stripping, you get loads of flavour. But I don't really want to spend money on buying goose or duck fat if it's not really necessary. And you know, the lard's it'll do a job. I bought it. I suppose it would be better if I'd actually made it myself, but it doesn't really matter. I mean, when you're doing confit like this, you can see my nails are a little bit dirty. Big faux pas. I've been out in the garden digging. They're only for myself and my sister. I'm not going to poison anyone with a few dirty fingernails. That's much better. So the fat will gently melt. Yeah, so you can cook duck leg. These are duck legs, but you can cook anything. Certainly fatty bits of meat like pork belly, confit particularly well. I've done that in the past and that works really well. Cook them nice and slowly, but you are getting some bits fatty and creating more fat. But yeah, but pork belly works particularly well. Duck legs, yeah, goose. You can do goose neck sausages, which are very nice. You can confit those. Those are very nice. And goose, obviously goose legs as well. They're very nice. Confit. Alright, so there we go. So that should be fine. Let it sit slowly, cook away nice and gently, and everything should be okay. Hopefully, it's not moving too much. You can touch the centre side of the pan. You can tell that it's hot to touch. So if it's hot to touch, you can't touch it, or keep your fingers there. Then like that's too hot. You're going to be knowing that that's going to be cooking the Confit duck legs very slowly, which is what you want. So if you cook things too quickly, certainly meats that you're braising, if you cook them too quickly, they tend to become stringy and tough. So nice and slow. Right, the duck legs are now done. 5.5 hours later. They took a lot longer than I thought they would do. First, because I had them on a really low heat, I wasn't in any kind of rush to have them cooked, and I also went swimming in that time. So I kind of turned it right down, and I kind of thought, that'll be fine, and went out. Which is, do you know, I do it all the time, but I wouldn't really recommend it, unless you're confident with your cooker. So yes, as you can see, and also the duck legs have shrunk. So if you remember when I put the extra fat in, they were kind of like almost bursting out of the fat, but now they've shrunk right down to. I'm not going to weigh them because that's a bit ridiculous. But as you can see, that's how tender they are. So they're almost ready for kind of falling to bits, which is absolutely perfect for them. We'll just have a quick talk about preserving jars while I'm here. As you can see, these are preserving jars, commonly known as Kilner jars. These aren't Kilner jars, and nothing that it looks like that is technically a Kilner jar, even though now the company that is called Kilner do make jars like that. The original Kilner jars are nothing like that. These are actually what's called as parfait jars.
Probably because the company that made them was called Parfait. Yes, because I've seen them with Parfait written on them. But also Parfait is something French, like in the vein of terrines and things like that, and pâtés, and things that you put in jars to store and seal. You know, so probably, I don't know. I mean, maybe I should look into these things before I start talking about them. But these are what's commonly known as Parfait jars, not kilner jars. You can call them kilner jars if you want, and people know exactly what you mean, but technically they are not kilner jars. And these aren't even branded, these are from Nisbet's catering supplies and they're cheap. But anything in the supermarket is fine. Sterilising jars, pretty straightforward. Wash them up beforehand, give them a good clean, rinse them in cold water, rinse them in clean water, and then put them in the oven. Take that ring off, the rubber ring off, quite simple to come off, before you put them in the oven, and cook them in the oven at about 100 degrees for half an hour, and then that'll kill any bacteria in them and make them completely sterilised. What you can do is you could get yourself instead, well not also, but instead of put them in the oven, you could put them in a big pan of simmering water, and that would have the same process of killing any bacteria, and then you'd be able to store things for a long time. Just another quick note, when you close them, it's best to have, there's that little lip there on the rubber, have that away from the clasp there and the things at the back. And what that's for, you know, I only just worked it out a few months back, is that's the thing that you pull on to break the seal. So you pull that to break the seal when you want to open them, and then they're much easier to open. Because otherwise, what you do is when you do that, take the clasp off, that, because of the vacuum in the container in the jar, it keeps all that sealed entirely, and then it's very difficult to open, and you end up potentially hurting yourself and breaking glass. So what you do is when that's still like that, pull that, and as you can see, hopefully be able to see, that pulls out, and then that breaks the seal, and then you can open the jars dead easy. So that's Parfait jars, kilner jars, whatever you want to call them. What we'll do now is we'll put, I think I'll use the tongs. I'll use the tongs. It'll be a little bit easy. And I think I'm going to put 4 duck legs in one, and then I'm going to put 2 duck legs in the other. It's a bit tricky. Trying not to break them. Broken it a little bit. Insert the skin. Best like that. I think I'll just put 2 in this one, and then we might stop. That's better. It looks like we're not going to get 3 in each. Maybe we should do 2. No, we'll squeeze 3 in. I'll let my sister worry about that when she pulls them out. There we go. 3 in. There, nice. We're going to squeeze 4 in? I don't think so. Maybe a small one. I might just squeeze that one in. No, it's not going to go. We'll do 3 in each. I might give my sister 6. We'll see how. Right, so I'll do the one in a little while. No, I'll do it now. You can see how I'm organised down, as always. Completely wing it as we go. Like that. Now, in the bottom of the fat, there is a layer of stocky jelly that's formed, which is juice out of the duck legs, which has come out naturally. It's really tasty, really tasty, and you can use it as a stock. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to strain the fat into a jug, and I'm going to pour the fat over the ducks, and then we're going to have left with the jelly at the bottom, and then we're going to do something else with the jelly there. On, so those there. This is here. Strain it, just so there's no. I'm going to strain it, but I'm going to leave the jelly in the bottom. You might be able to see it there. I don't know, can you? See
See that jelly at the bottom? Webcam's out very good. To be honest, getting quite a lot of fat out of that. And I'll stop just before we get to the jelly. We don't want that involved. That's it. And that on top of that. And then these over here. Don't know if I have enough fat. It needs to completely cover everything in the bones. I might need to melt a little bit more lard for one of them. Probably do. Just to make sure. That looks long. Yeah, I think I need to melt the rest of that lard. Oh, really bones? Oh no, maybe not. Let's stick a little bit to put the bones in. There's a little bit of fat, isn't it? Actually, I might be able to do it. I'll do that in a second. So, as you can see, everything completely covered. Smooth fingers. And licking them. Just clean off the top of that with a bit of tissue paper. And store that like that. Clamp down and then let that cool. That's a better view. No, it's not. Let it cool like that before you put it in the fridge. You've got to tell it'll start to look solidified, and then put it in the fridge. It's still hot to touch, so when it's cool to touch, you can then put it in the fridge. Don't be tempted to put that in a bowl of cold water to cool it down quicker. It's highly likely what you'll actually do is you'll smash the glass because of the expansion and contraction of glass with hot and cold liquids. There is technical terms. I don't know them, but it just cracks. So yeah, that's it. I think they will keep for a good 6 months in the fridge. I certainly have no. Check them because the contents are clear. You can see through. So if there's any kind of like growth of mould on the top, just keep checking every few weeks. And as long as there's no mould growing on the top, they should keep indefinitely. And certainly would improve in time. So in 2 months' time, they will taste better than they did if I was to eat them tomorrow. And then in 4 months' time, they'd taste even better. Again, to get them out of the jars, best thing to do is open the jar and then submerge them in some. Put them in a pan of cold water, then bring the cold water up to the boil, so it's it melts the fat, and then you'll be able to get them out a lot easier. Don't try and dig them out. You'll just make a mess of everything. What you can do is, if you don't want to put them in jars, the tray that I used to, the dish that I used to marinate them, something like that is fine. Nice and clean, same again, sterilise it in the oven, and then put the ducks into the dish, flesh side down, and then pour the fat over the top, let it go cold, cover it with some cling film, make sure the ducks are completely submerged, and then put that in the fridge, wrapped in cling film, and it'll keep for a long time. Much easier to get out as well because you can actually see where the duck legs are, and you can prize them out. But I'm not going to do that because my sister likes killing the jars, and she'll think it's wonderful for her birthday. And they also look nice. But yeah, that's it. Oh yes, before I do forget, if you're marinating something like duck legs or meat or anything, use glass or ceramic container or plastic to marinate them in. Don't use metal. It's not particularly a good idea if you put in, because the salt reacts with the metal. If you've got like an enamelled metal tray, that's fine. That's not going to be a problem. But stay away from marinating things in what we call metal. Certainly if you're using vinegar, and certainly if you're using salt to marinate things, because it has a reaction with the metal and will make things taste funny, or give them a metallic taste. And also aluminium is poisonous if you're using aluminium. Just be careful to think about that one. And I think that's it. Yeah, I don't think you'll ever see me cook these, because I'm going to give them to my sister. But if I do decide that I'm going to keep them, then at some stage I'll drain them off and we'll cook them and I'll show them what to do. But it's pretty straightforward. You just take the fat, remove as much excess fat as you want, and then roast them skin side up in the oven on a hot temperature, and they become really crispy and really tender and really nice. And there we go. Right, so the duck's cooling down nicely now. It's still a little bit warm, but I'm going to put it in the fridge because it's quite late now, and that'll be fine. And what it'll do is it'll solidify, and then keep in the fridge for a long time. Don't throw that fat away once you've taken the confit duck legs out of it. Save the fat and use it for roast potatoes, sauteed potatoes. Starting off, if you're going to fry something in the frying pan like steaks or fry some meat off, use that fat. It's absolutely amazing. You could use it again to make confit duck legs, but I wouldn't really use it more than twice because you lose a little bit of flavour. It just doesn't taste just quite the same once you've cooked it a few times. But save the fat, use it for something else. It'll make the best chips, the best roast potatoes you've ever tasted. This is the container that's got the juice from the bottom from the ducks. That basically is all the juice that's come out of the duck legs, and why they've shrunk in size. They've lost moisture. Don't really think there's anything you can do to stop that from happening. To be honest, I might one day work out how, or someone might tell me how, but there's not much you can do about it. And because it's cooked so slowly in the pan, it hasn't evaporated off. Like if you did it in the oven and it was slightly high temperature, all that juice would have evaporated off, and you wouldn't really kind of notice that juice on. But it's wonderful as that. It's got a layer of fat on the top. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put that in the fridge as well, and then it will solidify. The fat will go hard, and I'll peel that off the top, and then the jelly underneath will taste wonderful. And I'm going to use it in something tomorrow. I'm going to make some like a like a soup stroke stew, something a bit minestrone or something like that tomorrow for myself. And I'm going to use that as part of the base. It's going to taste the duck. It's going to be nice and gelatinous. It's going to have a little bit of taste of garlic and pepper and thyme in it, and it'll just improve a dish no end. All that. And it goes along the thread of really not wasting anything. And I'll save the fat off the top. I'll use it to cook something, and that'll improve something else. In no way. So it's that the whole ethos is not wasting anything, and certainly not wasting anything that's going to give you some flavour or improve flavour. Because anything you don't want to waste flavour, and also you don't want to waste money. So anything that you put into the bin that you could use something else, it's essentially throwing money away. And why would you do something like that? You know, I mean, you could buy some fat and make your own roast potatoes and not use that duck fat. But why would you buy something when you could use that? You know, use something twice, get double the value out of it, and something that's much superior flavour to anything else. Yeah, I think that's it. I think my sister would be really pleased with those presents. To be honest, I'd be really pleased if someone gave me those presents, and I don't know how much they are to buy. 3 duck legs, there were 3 packets for £10. So, you know, with a little bit of chicken fat, which was free, it's 10 quid. And the jars were, I think, £3.50 a piece. And it's £17.50 for a birthday present, which would certainly, and she'll get to keep the jars afterwards, which she really likes. And it'll just you know, to buy something like that costs you an absolute fortune. That well made anyway. You can buy something that's cheap and a bit nasty, but to have something that you can make and do yourself and give that as a present, that's one of the best things you can do, I would have thought. Apart from trips to New York, that'd be quite nice. If anyone wants to buy me a trip to New York with a birthday present, that would be lovely. But yeah, that's Confit Duck Legs, and preserving them and putting them in jars. Same process with the jars is the same process that you for sterilising anything and putting anything in jars, and then keep things in the fridge. Some things you have to keep in the fridge, but you know, like meat, it's just that little bit advisable to keep things like that in the fridge once you preserve them in jars. And that's about it, I think. Yes, I'm sure. I can't think of anything else.